I feel like the Apple Vision Pro is such a difficult product to review. Typically, with most tech reviews, you start off by talking about the specs and price of a product, followed by the design, what you like and what you don't like, before giving your final verdict on whether the viewer watching should go out and purchase that product. But it's slightly different this time because I don't think that Apple wants you to go out and buy the Vision Pro, at least not yet. So this is the new Apple Vision Pro, and it's technically not new since it was already released in the US earlier this year, but it is new in the sense that it's finally arrived here in the UK and a host of other countries. And with it being Apple's first major product release since the AirPods in 2016, it's got all of the signs of being a first generation product. So in this video, we're going to try and figure out, is the Apple Vision Pro really the future? Now, the first thing you'll notice immediately when unboxing the Vision Pro is that it is built like an absolute tank. As with most Apple products, it has a very premium, iconic, and industrial design. It almost looks like a pair of giant aviator glasses. And yeah, it just looks very futuristic. Maybe also a bit dystopian as well. A lot of people have drawn comparison to the Vision Pro and the TV show Black Mirror, which, my god, is such an incredible show. I've been watching it these past couple of weeks and have been absolutely blown by the quality. Definitely worth watching if you're into tech and this whole Apple Vision Pro stuff. But yeah, a lot of people I've spoken to have said that the Vision Pro has a dystopian feel to it, especially when I'm using it around other people and they see the lights glowing up on the outside. So quite famously, the Vision Pro is unique in that there are literal cameras on the inside of the headset that track where your eyes are looking at. And there's a screen on the outside that's meant to show your eyes to those around you. So it is a screen projecting everything. You're not actually looking at that person's real eyes. It's a nice concept, though right now the pass-through isn't that great. It's pretty bad, to be honest, but I can sort of appreciate what Apple were trying to do here, which is to avoid the Vision Pro isolating you from others around you, which I think is a worry that a lot of people have around this sort of tech. Now, another concern that a lot of people have raised about the Vision Pro is the weight, especially since it is made of materials like aluminium and glass, which can get quite heavy. Having said that, I personally haven't experienced any issues regarding the weight itself. You know, I can comfortably wear this thing for hours on end and my neck will usually be fine. Where I begin to run into trouble is with the comfort and the pressure it places around my eyes and nose. The best way I can describe it is that it kind of feels like wearing a heavy backpack for the whole day. For the first half hour, you'll be fine, but then as soon as you take it off and then put it back on, you'll immediately notice the difference. You can mitigate this by swapping the SoloNet headband for the dual loop band that comes included in the box, though granted, it is more of a nuisance to put on. Another issue I've encountered is that you can also experience a big amount of eye strain when using this thing for extended durations of time, typically more than half an hour, because of how close the screens are to your eyes. Another limitation of the Vision Pro is that it only has a battery life of 2.5 hours. So this was one of the stranger design choices that Apple made with the Vision Pro, because to power the device, you're actually given a separate standalone battery pack that connects via this proprietary charging cable, which was a nightmare for me to connect at first. And then you have to later charge the charging brick itself when that runs out of power. Now, one workaround for this is that if you're sat at a desk for most of the day, you can just connect the battery pack straight to a wall outlet and have unlimited power for the whole day. And most of the time, I have the battery pack placed in my pocket so it doesn't get in my way. But if you're on a 7-8 hour flight, this thing technically won't last you throughout the whole journey, which I know will be a shame to some people. But enough about the hardware, let's talk about the actual experience of using this thing. And those of you who already watched my unboxing video will know that I was initially quite underwhelmed with the Vision Pro. The first thing I noticed was that the pass-through on this thing is not great. You get a lot of noise and fuzziness through the camera feeds, which does break the illusion of you being in a virtual reality, especially when you're in low light environments, which is understandable because, of course, the way you're able to see the outside world is through a set of cameras which are projected onto your display. You know, it's not a see-through display. And so naturally you're going to be limited by the technology of today's cameras. Another thing that's bugged me is that I didn't really find the whole experience of using the eye tracking to be as seamless as I had hoped. So quite famously, the way you navigate through the Vision Pro is by using your eyes and pinching your hands to select objects in space. And there are literal cameras inside of the display tracking exactly where your eyes are looking at. And the eye tracking is generally quite precise on apps that are optimized for the Vision Pro. With other apps, it's not always as seamless. If you try navigating through YouTube or Netflix on Safari on the Vision Pro, it's an absolute nightmare trying to properly select stuff. But the main issue I've had is that the eye tracking requires you to actually focus and concentrate on what it is that you want to press on. You know, it's not really something that you can do passively, like with a mouse or a touchscreen. And so there have been cases where I've accidentally closed windows when I wanted to move them closer to me, or I'll accidentally pause a TV show whilst I'm eating because the cameras think that I'm trying to pinch my fingers. And it's not just me who's had this issue. All of the family and friends that I've shown this thing to have all struggled to adjust to the navigation. Also, a fundamental issue with the Vision Pro is that there is no haptic feedback anywhere inside of this thing, which I guess sort of sounds quite obvious, but it means that if you're trying to type in text using the virtual keyboard, it's almost impossible to coherently type anything more than a quick reply. So your best options are to either use voice dictation or to connect an external keyboard. And I think this is just a fundamental trade-off that we're going to have to accept with the whole concept of spatial computing, because I don't really see how Apple can fix this in future updates unless they introduce some sort of Vision Pro hand gloves that support haptic feedback. Now, I don't want this to turn into a Vision Pro bashing review, because you have to understand that this is a first generation product. You know, it was never going to be perfect straight out of the box. So let's get into some of the things which I really like. The first thing being the displays. Apple are currently using two 4K micro OLED displays inside of the Vision Pro, and they are just absolutely incredible. Everything looks extremely clean and sharp. I'm not on about the pass-through, that bit still sucks. But when it comes to stuff like watching movies and entering 3D environments, it's just an incredible experience, is all I can say. It's not really one of those things that I can express into words or through a B-roll shot. It really is one of those things which I feel like you have to go and experience for yourself in order to truly appreciate. Being able to enter those 3D environments feels like an escape from the world around you. It's great for getting deep work done in busy environments, especially when connected to my Mac. So quite famously, the Vision Pro has a feature that allows you to mirror your Mac screen into the space around you. So you can theoretically have a giant Pro Display XDR right in front of you when you're sat at your desk, when you're traveling, when you're in a hotel room. And the best part about it is that nobody else can see what it is that you're looking at. So you get a bit of extra privacy if you're working on any sensitive documents, or if you just don't want other people to be nosy and looking at what's on your screen whilst in public. Now, I will say that as of right now, the Mac mirroring feature does have a few quirks. The first being that the resolution just isn't that great, especially if you scale it up. Obviously, if you're currently using a 4K monitor, you shouldn't really notice too much of an issue. But if you're coming from something like a 5K Apple Studio display or a 6K Pro Display XDR, the downgrade can feel quite noticeable. But the main issue I've encountered is that there is a noticeable amount of lag when navigating across the Mac, especially when you're doing things like moving between spaces and moving your cursor across the screen. I usually have to wait a couple of seconds for my mouth to move across the screen. The displays in the Apple Vision Pro are capable of reaching up to 90 Hz, so I don't think the refresh rate is the issue here. I think it might just be a limitation of the current Bluetooth technology that this thing is using. But that aside, I still think that the ability to mirror a Mac virtual display into the space around you is a killer feature for me personally. And in Vision OS 2, you'll soon be able to adjust the dimensions of your monitor, so you can theoretically have an ultra-wide monitor experience with you whenever you go traveling. When it comes to watching TV shows and movies, as I said, the experience is like no other, especially if you're using Disney Plus and you're on top of that Avengers Tower. Watching 3D movies feels like you're actually physically present in the scene. And it's definitely a novel way of consuming content that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. A lot of people have also talked about being able to watch live sports on the Vision Pro and being able to have sort of 3D animations of the game on your screen. You know, I would love to watch a Manchester United game live in 3D on the Apple Vision Pro, but I still think that we're many, many years away from that becoming a reality, because transmitting 3D spatial videos across the internet is actually a lot harder than you might think. It requires a lot of data and expensive camera equipment and the correct setup, and most sports streaming sites have only just begun to offer 4K streaming recently. So yeah, I think that we're many, many years away from this becoming a reality, but the potential is still very promising. Now, a lot of people have asked if the Vision Pro will kill the need for people to go to actual cinemas to watch movies, and I don't think that it will. Mainly because, for me, going to the cinema is more of a social experience. Even something like watching the TV in your living room with the rest of your family and friends can be a social experience. And despite how impressive the technology inside the Vision Pro is, it still feels very isolating, and it's not really the kind of device that I want to see people wearing a lot in public. Granted, Apple have tried to introduce features like spatial personas, which attempt to create digital replicas of you that can interact with other people during video calls, but the accuracy still isn't good enough to match real-life interactions. Of course, many of you will probably be wondering if the Vision Pro is worth purchasing, and for most people, it is definitely not, especially when the average monthly salary here in the UK is about £2,000 to £3,000. To spend 2 months of your salary on a $3,500 headset, it just makes no financial sense unless you're ridiculously rich. It is still worth trying out. You know, if you have an Apple store nearby to you, definitely go give it a try, but I wouldn't recommend most people go out and own this thing unless you know exactly what it is that you're getting into. Really, I'd say that this device is more of a proof of concept that's geared towards early adopters who want to experience tomorrow's technology today. And this comes back to what I said earlier about Apple not wanting people to buy the Vision Pro just yet, because they know that if the ordinary consumer tries this thing on, experiences how cumbersome and heavy it is to use, it will immediately put so many people off and tarnish the Vision brand. But by having a high price tag, Apple are ensuring that only the most eager of tech enthusiasts will go out and purchase this, and chances are those people are already fans of Apple to begin with, so they're likely to cut them some slack. And I think this is why we've not seen such a huge marketing push from Apple for this product. You know, anytime a new iPhone or iPad is released, you'll see ads all over YouTube and Instagram. You'll see billboards outside because Apple wants people to buy the latest iPhone. But when it comes to the Vision Pro, I personally haven't seen many ads for this product on social media. Even though Apple definitely has the resources to push this thing as much as they like, most of the coverage for this product has actually come from content creators on the internet. You know, people running tech channels like me. We seem to be the ones generating most of the hype and commentary around this device. Now, my intention is to return this device after the 2-week return window, like most of the people, because there are just so many other ways that I could go out and spend that £3,500, like plowing it into investments, you know, stocks and shares, investing it into gear for this YouTube channel. You know, as a 21-year-old graduate, I definitely am not in the target audience for this kind of product. So to answer the original question, is the Apple Vision Pro the future? And I don't think that it will be, but I think that the concept of spatial computing will be here to stay. It just seems like the natural evolution going forward from mobile touchscreen technology. And already in iOS 18, Apple are introducing an accessibility feature that will allow you to navigate your iPhone using your eyes. Now granted, I did say that the Apple Watch and AirPods would both be failures when they were released, so I don't really have the best track record when it comes to predicting the future. But I'll leave you with this. There was a quote I read from Steve Jobs the other day, And it went something amongst the lines of how a good product will focus on solving a customer's problem first and then work backwards to the technology, rather than creating a new technology and trying to retrofit a use case for it. And with the Vision Pro, it sort of feels like Apple have done the latter. They've created this incredible piece of technology, but right now it's not that obvious what to do with it. And apparently it's up to us users and app developers to try and figure it out, which, to be fair, is sort of what happened with the iPhone. So I guess only time will tell if the Vision Pro follows a similar arc. As I said, I most likely will be returning the Vision Pro. That's by no means an indictment of the product. In fact, in terms of technology, I think that this product is extremely great with a good amount of potential. I just would prefer to invest that £3,500 into the S&P 500 instead. Consider leaving a like if this was helpful. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter and subscribe for the next one.